Yes, my people, as the hot, it don't happen. No, UK don't come outside though. They don't talk. Say anybody or any politician when they see say if they involved in election violence, they go ban out from UK. And they constantly give their reasons why they want ban these people, and the reasons causing foreign land, like say that they support Peter Obi. Yes, my brother family, please do me a favor. Just hit this like button. So Facebook for recommend this video. Give all those evil politicians when they plan to do this election violence, and share this video. Comment your opinion. Watch what this man talk. Why not say this woman? In fact, they are obedient when I want to.
Good morning. It's a great pleasure to be on the morning show.
Well, thank you very much. Well, I mean, you've been quoted in the papers as saying that the UK government is concerned that there may be likely post-election violence, and that whoever promotes this, will not be allowed to have access to the United Kingdom. If you could just tell us about that, and whether in fact there is a mechanism in place for concerned citizens to report some persons to the British High Commission, because some of us probably know some people who have been promoting hatred and vitriol in the course of these preparations for elections.
Well, thank you. Yes, but before I answer that specific question, just let me put it in context. I think, the world is watching this election in Nigeria. It's hugely important. You're the largest democracy in Africa, in a region which has seen some democratic backsliding. So it matters for every citizen of Nigeria, to the region and to the world. And generally, I can say we're very pleased with the progress of Nigeria's democratic journey. Each election has made some improvements on process, particularly through improvements INEC's made. You've got a vibrant civil society who's very good at calling things out. So overall, what we're looking for in this election is more progress and a credible, peaceful and secure election. So having set that scene, in terms of insecurity specifically, there have been a relatively high number of pre-election incidents, higher than in the last election, I think almost double. So that's the period we're in now, still as we enter the run-up to the election. And as you mentioned, some of that has also been hate speak online. There'll be the period of the election itself, the day of the election, and obviously the gubernatorial elections. And there may be different kinds of violence in different places, depending on the context, the backdrop, and how close perhaps the election is. And then, as I mentioned in an earlier briefing, there's the post-election period, and we've seen this in the past in Nigeria. And this is really a crucial message to get out, and I've been saying it to all the presidential candidates. They have a really important responsibility to ensure that their supporters, whilst we want them to come out and be enthusiastic and support their candidate, that's absolutely right, that the result has to be respected. There's only one poll that counts, that's the poll on the day, and there has to be a winner and there's going to be some losers. So we hope there won't be post-election violence. So it was just really for me to set out our concerns about that, but it can be avoided, and any objections and concerns can and should be taken through the judicial process. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Ms. Line. You have reiterated that the British government has resolved to sanction politicians who incite violence, and that even British politicians, Nigerian British politicians, would not be exempt. This is not the first time this promise has been made. In the last cycle of elections and previous elections, we've had assurances from the British government that this would be part of their support to promoting a violence-free election. I'd like you to share with Nigerians have there been any such sanctions made, and who are some of these people as a deterrent to people who perhaps might want to incite violence?
So again, just to explain the policy on this, and it's no different than in previous elections. I was here for the last election and I made a previous statement, and our ministers did. So our policy is very similar to the Americans, so that we're watching very closely, and if we have evidence to suggest that an individual, who isn't necessarily a politician, by the way, it could be somebody from the security side, it could be an individual citizen, it's not directed specifically at politicians. If anybody has incited violence or indeed directly participated in violence, we can and will consider using our visa program to prevent that person travelling to the UK. We also have a new tool in our armoury, which is human rights related sanctions can be placed on an individual. You will see later this morning a statement on the elections from our development minister and African minister, Andrew Mitchell, and there'll be a clear statement on this which will be coming out this morning.
Okay, so does that also involve, and I know maybe this might be also like your American counterparts, does this also involve people in the judiciary? Because there was a story recently that broke about a certain politician saying that, you know, some people in the judiciary were stopped from getting a visa to go into America. So this dragnet, will it also involve people in the judiciary, you know, all sorts of decision taking that can be at an anathema to democracy and the likes? You know, would they also be sanctioned in all of this?
So obviously I can't comment on the specific US case. I'm not going to say who's in and who's out, because the point of this is that it can be applied to anybody who's involved in undermining the democratic process, and in particular those who are inciting violence or conducting violent acts. But it can go wider. Hate speak and so on could be picked up through this. So anybody, any individual in any walk of life who's undermining the democratic process. And just to add, we have used this tool before. I cannot say who this has been directed to for data protection reasons, obviously. But of course, the point, as you mentioned, is for this to be a deterrent. We don't want to use this tool. We want Nigeria's elections to be peaceful. So this is really just an indication that we are watching closely, and we have this tool in our armory should we have to use it.
Well, you've had meetings with INEC officials, also with some political party leaders and also other stakeholders. Beyond your concern about post-election violence, are there other concerns?
Well, I think there are, in a country of this size, with the logistical challenges involved in conducting elections, there are obviously going to be challenges. I mean, I think it is frankly remarkable how much preparation has gone into for this very complex election. We've had numerous discussions with INEC, who have assured us that from the logistical point of view, they are very well prepared, and the right ballot papers, polling station equipment, everything will be delivered to the right places at the right time. Obviously, we'll have to wait and see, where the election is still just under a week away. But we've had very strong assurances from INEC that they are well prepared.
All right, thank you for your vote of confidence. Now let's talk about foreign interference, which the president had actually spoken about when he was speaking to some foreign envoys about the importance of staying within the remit of your engagement and not interfering in elections. I'd like you to share with us in terms of the British High Commission's position and the British government's position in this, especially as it pertains to Nigerian elections, because there's a lot of interest from the international world and very well so in our elections in a few days.
Absolutely, and I understand and respect Nigeria's sovereignty. This is Nigeria's election, this is not the UK's election. So we are here as a committed supporter and long-term friend of Nigeria, and we have a stake in Nigeria's election because a stable Nigeria is good for the world. But that's not interference directly. We will work with whoever wins this election. We've met all the key candidates on numerous occasions, and we've given the same message to all of them. We're not backing an individual candidate. We're not interfering in the elections. As I say, we've done everything we can to support the elections. We've been long-standing partners on Nigeria's democratic journey. We've invested heavily in supporting INEC, its processes. We've invested heavily in supporting civil society. It was the UK who provided the support, the technical support, through a civil society organisation called PLAC, the Policy Legal Advisory Centre, to do the actual legislative work to enable the Electoral Act to go through. We support YAGA, the Not Too Young to Run campaign, in their situation centre, in the parallel vote tabulation they've run. So we're there as absolutely strong supporters of Nigeria's democracies, and we invest in that, and we have a stake in it, but we're absolutely not interfering. This is your election, and it's for the Nigerian people to decide, and we will work with whoever is successfully elected.
Okay. Obviously, with this, your policy decision to withdraw visa from people that will have one or two effects on the election, I'm sure your list will have been full already, because when you look at all of it, there are a lot of people finding the embassy in the public space as we speak, and I'm sure you are taking note, and the UK is taking note as regards this. You know, what would you like to say to people hitting up the polity, talking about possibilities of coups and interim governments and things like that? You know, because that's also part of heating up the polity and fanning the embers. And there are people that have stated this, and security agents are already talking to. What would you like to say as regards that and say to people like that?
Well, it's the same message, and I will be happy to repeat it, which is it is really important that everyone supports a secure and credible and peaceful election so that nobody feels intimidated, nobody feels threatened in the run-up to the election and on the day. There's a lot at stake, and we understand, therefore, why emotions can rise and people try sometimes to whip up strong feelings. Those feelings can then translate into violence, and that will be very bad for the citizens of Nigeria and for Nigeria's reputation internationally. So we really don't want to see that happen. There are means of objecting if you feel that something wasn't done credibly, fairly. You have a strong judicial system here, and we just urge all the political party leaders in particular, because they have a responsibility to send to their supporters a very strong message that everyone must behave responsibly on the day. And indeed, of course, the security forces play a hugely important role in creating a peaceful environment, a non-partisan peaceful environment, so everyone feels they can turn up to their local polling station with a happy and joyful occasion, actually celebrating Nigeria's democracy. So there is no place for hate speech, there's no place for inciting violence. And to say, we will be watching closely, and we have a bar we have to meet for those who withdraw a visa, but we're watching closely, and we have used these tools before.
Well, Nigeria and the United Kingdom both have decades, years, centuries of diplomatic and cultural relations. Now, this election is a major one. When the election in Nigeria is won and lost, what is likely to be the future priorities for the UK in terms of relationship with Nigeria, depending on the outcome of this election?
Yes, indeed. Well, like most key partners, I will be looking, I think, to deepen and strengthen our partnership post-election. Nigeria faces numerous challenges, economic challenges, security challenges, and the time really has come to tackle these challenges, to take some of the tough decisions. So providing an incoming government is committed to that. We are going to be there, lock, stock and barrel behind, and certainly our ministers are keen to deepen and strengthen the partnership. Our Foreign Secretary, James Cleverly, gave a very important speech just before Christmas, which talks about the importance of middle ground powers, he called them, and Nigeria is exactly the kind of country he has in mind, where he wants us to have a long-term transformational partnership where we listen very carefully to Nigeria's priorities, we very honestly set out our own, and we try and establish a mutual accountability framework. So we hold each other to account for the commitments that we've made, and we do this at a high level with, I hope to get Foreign Secretary involvement and a regular dialogue, perhaps once every year, where we look across the spectrum of the Nigeria-UK relationship, which goes from security through economics, obviously the massive economic potential. But underpinning all this is our incredibly strong people-to-people links through education, through culture. Nigeria's enormous influence on culture. I think Burna Boy is the biggest downloaded musician in the UK. You have massive influence. So it's a two-way thing. Nigeria's influences UK. So I hope it'll be my successor, sadly. I'll be moving on after 4.5 years, who will be looking to such an exciting time ahead with a deeper and stronger partnership between these two long-lasting friends, UK and Nigeria.